Sorry, wait. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopichana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopichana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Radha Madhava
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Now, who took my coat away? I got my Kleenex in there. I only have one left here. Okay. Sorry. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sorry about this. Okay, so on this 14th day of January 2025 in San Diego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. Text 14, I believe. Is it? Yeah, thank you. Did you say 15? 14, yeah. Okay. Just let me get this. Okay. Okay. Adishtanam tata karta karanam cha pithag vidham vividhash cha pithak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam adishtanam tatha karta karanam cha pithag vidham vividhash cha pithak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam adishtanam tatha karta karanam chapathag vidham vividas chapathak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam adishtanam tatha karta karanam chapathag vidham vividas chapathak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam adishtanam tatha karta karanam chapathag vidham vividas chapathak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam adishtanam tatha karta karanam chapathag vidham vividhas chapathak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. One more on the man's side. Want to try it? Go ahead. Adishtanam tatha karta karanam chapathag vidham vividhas chapathak cheshta chaivam chaivatra panchamam. Ladies. Adishtanam tatha karta karanam chapathag vidham vividhas chapathak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. Adishtanam tatha karta karanam chapathag vidham vividhas chapathak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. Ani? Adishtanam tatha karta karanam chapathag vidham vividhas chapathak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. Okay, I'll read the word by words myself, just read along. Adishtanam, the place. Tata, also. Karta, the worker. Karanam, instruments. Cha, and pitak vidham, of different kinds. Vividhaha, various. Cha, and pitak, separate. Chesta, the endeavors. Daivam, the supreme. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Atra, here. Panchamam, the fifth. So before I read this translation, then read the previous translation because they go together. Almighty Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes, previous translation. Almighty Arjuna, according to the Vedanta, there are 5 causes for the accomplishment of all actions. Now learn of these from me. And these are the 5. The place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. These are the 5 factors of action. Purport. The word adishtanam refers to the body. The soul within the body is acting to bring about the results of activity and is therefore known as the karta, or the doer. That the soul is the knower and the doer is stated in the Shruti. Eshihi drashta thrashta, the Prashna Upanishad 4.9. It is also confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra by the verses Gyota Eva 2.3.18 and Karta Shastrata Vatvat 2.3.33. The instruments of action are the senses, and by the senses the soul acts in various ways. For each and every action there is a different endeavor. But all one's activities depend on the will of the Supersoul, who is seated within the heart as a friend. The Supreme Lord is the super cause. Under these circumstances, he who is acting in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the Supersoul, situated within the heart, is naturally not bound by any activity. Those in complete Krishna consciousness are not ultimately responsible for their actions. Everything is dependent on the Supreme Will, the Supersoul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So, what is the context here? Krishna is describing, this chapter is called the perfection of renunciation. Now, why do we want to renounce? That of course, that depends on what we've just read. This is the last chapter of the book. And the problem that we have, which we generally don't really recognize on a regular basis, ordinary people, is that we are destined, as we all know, we're all destined to leave this body, as we say, or to die. We're going to die one day. So think about it. In an ordinary course of life, you go through life growing up as a child. Suppose you're in a very secure household, everything's okay in the West. But you go through, and there's a certain number of attachments that you have. You begin, of course, with your mother, and then your parents. Maybe you get attached to your siblings, maybe not. Maybe it's just the opposite. I know I used to fight with my brother all the time. But the point is, it's a certain context, and you're developing your consciousness. Your brain is growing, and you're learning, right? And so there's all these things that you're doing, because this is all about doing. How do we do something? You see, what are the factors in our action? But we also need to know that whatever action we perform has a result. It can be an auspicious result, it can be inauspicious result. And in the Vedic context, if you read the Bhagavad Gita from the beginning, you'll see that Krishna is first speaking about the soul and the body. We have to recognize who we really are. What is our identity? Now, in the ordinary course of events, if you get stopped for going through a stop sign or a stoplight, the policeman may, if you get caught, okay, pull you over, then they want to see, hey, are you actually a legal driver? License and registration, please. Is this your car? Like that. So, okay, the papers are in order, right? And what is there on that little license that proves it's you? Well, there's a picture. That's first thing, right? There's your name. I think your address is on there, also your age, eye color, They want to be able to take one look and say, okay, this is, and then go from there. So that's generally what we think of who we are. We have a bodily identity. Right? I'm such an age, I have such a name, and such a family, gender, all of these different, what we call designations. But Krishna is challenging that at the very beginning. That this body that we have, he compares to a suit of clothes. Because after all, at a certain time, we give it up. Now, the first lesson is you don't die. I mean, that's really good news. Nobody dies and nobody is born. We simply occupy different bodies, and we identify with whatever body we're in ordinary consciousness. We call conditioned consciousness. But the human body, and this is worth emphasizing in every class, the human body is a special chance to end this transmigration. We don't really know our full powers of enjoyment and life and everything else, because we're constricted by this body, whatever body we're in. And one thing that you learn, very early is that all these other organisms that we see, the birds, all those fish out there, the insects, the plants, wherever you see consciousness manifest, there's a soul present there. Now, obviously, these poor, lower animals and insects, their consciousness is very, very rudimentary. Basically, where is there something to eat? They spend a lot of time in that. And then, this is danger, I mean, these insects, especially in the summer, they wander in, and we don't want to kill anything. So if we see an ant or something, we try to, try to get him up and put him out, because we realize that this is a soul just like we are. But the consciousness is very rudimentary. Where is safety, fight or flight, right? Eating, sleeping, there's mating, and everything going on. Basically those four things: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, and in our ordinary life, that also is, those are also very important factors. We have to eat, we have to defend, we have to be secure, we have to, reproduce. So, but what is it? Then there's a verse, and which I'll give to you in another book called the Hitopadesh. Hitopadesh means instructions for the benefit of human beings. That describes the essential distinction between human life and all other forms of life, especially animal life. So it goes like this. Ahara nidra bhayamaitanamcha samanyamaitan pashubi naranam dharmo hitesham adiko vishesho dharme nihina pashubi samana. Which means that we share these basic four kind of principles with the animals: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So what's the distinction? Are we just all polished animals? Well, sometimes it's like that. But aside from that, he says, Dharmo hitesham adiko vishesha. Dharma is the distinction that makes a human being rather than an animal. Otherwise, we're like two-legged animals, So then the question, well, what is that Dharma? What is Dharma? And this, as anyone who's familiar, I can see a lot of, good number of people are very conversant with the Vedic culture just by birth. Dharma is such an important thing, you see. Now, Dharma, you look it up in the English dictionary, it's an English word. English language just vacuums in all kinds of words from all kinds. You'll find French there, German, and the Sanskrit language. So Dharma is basically a religion. And Prabhupada, he would appreciate that, but that's not really the essence of what Dharma means. Dharma comes from the root. All Sanskrit words have a root, a dri, which means to sustain. Just like deity here is giridhari. That word dhari also comes from the same root, to hold up. Famous for holding up the hill, giridhari, right? And everything has its dharma. Forgive me, I'm going to give the same example again because it's very easy. A chair. What's the dharma of a chair? You sit down in it and it supports you. There's really comfortable chairs. There's chairs. I have a chair someone gave me. It cost $400. Herman Miller chair. Very comfortable. They last forever. I don't know if you... That's good if you're going to spend a lot of hours at a desk. I work at a computer editing, But a chair is a chair. If you sit on it and it collapses, it hasn't been, it's an adharmic chair. It's not meeting its dharma. So everything has an intrinsic nature and a function. So then the question is, well, what is the dharma of the soul? What is the dharma of the spirit soul? Because it's not a question of the body. The body has to function according to the soul. And these actions that we're performing are according to our consciousness. You want something, and therefore you try to get it, or you get that that you can buy it, right? It's the whole idea. Or you want to escape from some danger, so then there's the action of running or fleeing or whatever, somehow or other getting away from the danger. And so all of these motivations are there, and you want to ask, well, what is the basic motivation there? And basically it's pleasing the body or pleasing the mind, which is a subtle body, or keeping it safe, danger, we don't want to die. So these impetuses are there. But at the beginning here, so Arjuna, the whole Bhagavad Gita, those who are familiar with the story, Arjuna took the role of a conditioned soul at the beginning, which means that when the whole thing is, the battle is about to happen, I'm not going to go into the whole background of the Mahabharata, but the whole thing is culminating in this fight between two parts of the same family, really. But there's thousands and thousands and millions of soldiers. They've all marshaled their armies. And on one side is Dharma personified. Who's the son of Dharma there amongst the Pandavas? Yudhishthira. He's actually the son of Yamaraj, who is known as Dharmaraj. He judges everybody after death. He's a demigod. And his brother is the son of Indra, and another brother is the son of Vayu. So he's got all these brothers who are, the sons of demigods. So they're all Krishna's devotees. And Arjuna is a personal friend. So it's all come to this. Who's going to rule the world? Is Dharma going to rule the world in the person of Yudhishthira? Or is it going to be Duryodhana and his brothers, Dhritarashtra? So Krishna, he's on Arjun's side, but I'm not going to fight. So he offers, all right, I'll be your chariot driver. So Krishna's taking, that's a servant. So he's taking the role of a servant of his devotee. He's the Supreme Lord. And Arjun, he gets what we would call cold feet. When Krishna brings the chariot between the two armies, and there's thousands and thousands of soldiers on the other side, elephants and chariots, horses, they're all ready to go, So he wants to see who's on the other side, who's my so-called enemy. And there he sees his beloved grandfather. That grandfather figure, he took the role of grandfather when his own father died untimely like that. And then his teacher, Dronacharya, taught him the martial arts, that he became expert at. And so many others, relatives and friends, and because it's an internecine battle, different parts of the same family, dynasty. And of course, on his own side, there's so many others. So he says, what do I need this battle for? If I fight this battle and I'm successful, then I'll have the kingdom, but the kingdom will be soaked with the blood of the people who I respect and love. Who cares? I don't want that, And he had this whole Vedic argument, and then men will be killed, the women will be unprotected, and I'll cause such confusion on the earth, and I'll go to hell and keep everything, So he has all these arguments, so he doesn't want to fight. So ultimately he sits down on the chariot, drops his bow, which is a big thing for a Kshatriya, and he sits down, Govinda, I shall not fight. Then Govinda, Krishna says, hey, get up. This is Anaryan. You know what the Aryans is? Of course, the Nazis spoiled the word, but it's a very good word. It means, Aryan means those who are learned in spiritual values. The very spiritual values are their essence. Very progressive, So Arjuna and his brothers were all Aryans, but he says this activity of yours is un-Aryan because you're not doing your duty. You've lost your duty. So Krishna, Arjuna at that point, he changes the whole relationship. Because he's a friend of Krishna's, they would joke together and like that. But he wants a different relationship now. So here's a very important verse. It's in the 2nd chapter near the beginning. Karpan nidosho bhata swabhava prichami tvam dharma sambuddha chetak yakshe yaksyan nishtitam bruhitam me shishyasteham shadimam tvam papannam. That last word is very important. Papannam means I surrender. Now I recognize you, Krishna, who he knows is God, as my spiritual master, and I am your disciple or shishya. And I'm not going to argue with her anymore. I realize I'm completely confused. So I'm asking you, I'm confused about what my dharma is, what I should do here. You see? And so please tell me what is the best thing I can do. Shreya, yak shreya ksyan nishitam bruhi. Tell me for sure how I can achieve the greatest auspicious result, both for myself and everyone else. I am your disciple now, and I've surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So at that point, then Krishna, he chastises him a little bit. He says, Asochanam Asocastram Pragya Bharam Shabhashase Gatasun Gatasun Cha Nanusochanti Pandita. He says, you're lamenting for what is not lamentable. And what is that? The material body. You see? Because you're speaking learned words, so to speak, but no real pundit will say that, you see. So then he gives a verse that's one of the most famous in the Gita. Those who are into memorizing verses, this is always the first verse to memorize. When I was in the ashram, we always had these little cards of memorizing. So, Dehinosmin, it may be a few verses after, I think 2 verses later. Dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yobanam jaratata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. So he gives an example here that everyone can realize. He's trying to give him the knowledge of the eternality of the soul and the transmigration of the soul. Because he's worried that Bhishma and the others are going to be killed, but Krishna, nobody's going to die. They may change their bodies just like you take off an old coat, but that's going to be very auspicious for them because I'm here on the battlefield. And this is one of the blessings. If you die in the presence of Krishna, then you go to the higher planets to Vaikuntha. So here he says, just as, and all of us can remember, I mean, I remember the first thing I remember, I think I was maybe 5 or 4, and I was on a tricycle. I don't remember much more from that time, you know. But I know I was alive. My mother, you know, I was definitely... So as a child grows up, from childhood to youth to adolescence and so forth, the body changes, but you're the same person, right? We're all the same person we were when we were 8 years old. Can anyone deny that? We may have changed, but we're the same person. So what's the same? The body has changed, the mind has changed, you know, everything has changed. You probably moved a couple of times, but you're the same person because you're the spirit soul. You see? So that continues all the way through your middle age, old age, and boom, death. And Krishna says, death? It's just like taking off the old clothes. Just like I brought this I hadn't worn in years. I used to live in Philadelphia. But this is San Diego. It's always at least 60 degrees here, right? No, now it's in the 40s in the morning, so now I'm going to start wearing this. But at a certain point, if I was wearing it, I would have long ago discarded this, but it's been in the closet for years. But the point is, as we all know, eventually you outgrow the clothes and you give them up. You're the same person, but the clothes are gone. Similarly, at a certain point, this body, which is just too old, it doesn't work anymore, it's like an old machine that eventually breaks. So you have to give it up. You know, you don't want to because you're used to it, you know, but that's what happens to all of us. So you don't die. What happens? This is where you need to understand. We have a gross body, which we all know, we see in the mirror, and a subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. And that subtle body doesn't die when the body dies. It takes you to your next body. So what we're doing is all... Thank you for visiting. Hare Krishna. What we do every day, every moment, is transforming our consciousness. If we want to go here and see that, or see that person, read this book, whatever it may be, that's going to have an effect on our subtle body, and there's going to be a record in there. So, plus, there's this whole idea of karma. Because we're not alone. As Krishna is explaining here, he's in the heart of everyone as the super soul. There's a witness, you see. But we should know, he's our best friend. He's our best friend. This is like, you know, I think of the U.S. Constitution. You know, how they, there's no, they can't just break into your house and start, you know, taking all your papers away, you know, and say, we suspect you. Well, you have to have some evidence that this person may be guilty, you know. In other words, they want to know everything about you, you see, but they're not supposed to be allowed to do that without a warrant. A warrant means there's some proof that, you know, you might have something to hide. The point is that Krishna knows everything about us. You know, he says, Vedaham samatitani vartamani, I know everything that happened in the past. It's inconceivable. It's just so wonderful to think there's a conscious person who knows everything about everybody and everything that's happened in the past, everything that's happening now, everything that happened in the future. That's what it means to be omniscient. Even in Western theology, there's these three main basic characteristics of God: omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. Right? I learned that long ago before I ever heard of Krishna consciousness. So Krishna says that in the Gita. Vedaham samadhi. I know everything happened in the past, everything that's happening now, everything that happened in the future. But me, no one knows. In truth, we can know something about Krishna, but not like that. So, but it's very nice that he says also in the end of the 5th chapter, and this is the famous peace formula. Prabhupada gave a whole lecture, you know, essay on it. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. Says, I am the ultimate enjoyer of all sacrifices. I am the Lord of all worlds. Bhoktaram sarvaloka maheshwaram. Ishvara means the control of all lokas, the planets, you know. Suridam sarvabhutanam. I am the well-wishing friend of every living being within the heart. One who knows these three things can attain real peace. So, if we have someone who knows us well, but his only desire is to help us, he's our well-wishing friend, that's okay. If we have some enemy who's found all, you know, like the people who are trying to hack your computer and take you all, you know, and get into your account and all that, they want to know, you know, your password. Krishna knows it already, but he's not going to steal any money. So you want to, if you have to trust that person, you're going to, with your most intimate secrets, well, he's going to know them anyway, but he's our well-wisher. So how is he our well-wisher? He's teaching us here how we can act, how we can change our lives and do things that will be for our eternal benefit. Come back home to Godhead. We're all exiles here. This is not our home. This is an alien world. Yeah? We're not meant to face all this old age, disease, and death, and all these enemies, and all of this. This is, But we're special. We're very fortunate. You know why? Because we're in this Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga itself is not so good for yoga. There's a verse about it at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. Prayano payashak sabya kalabasmin yugena manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya yupadrita. So for the most part, prayana means for the most part, that applies to all of them. For the most part, we don't live that long. Carter, the old President Carter, made it to 100. Whoa, 100, that's pretty good, It's hardly anyone lives to 100. He just died, President Carter. But that's not very long compared to you read about, Brahma. 311 trillion, 40 billion years. Who wants to live that long? Anyway, so we don't live very long, but that's not the real problem. Manda, we're lazy in the matter of spiritual life. We're so immersed in the senses and the sense objects, especially in this Kali Yuga, that it's rare to find someone who is interested in the Gita. I've been giving these classes, for a long time, and if I have this many people, I think, oh, this is a great thing. And I thank Tapas, because I don't know how many people are out there. Don't tell me there could be 20, 30, 40, 50. So it's a whole different world. But how much is that compared to the millions of other people here in San Diego? But the point is that that Krishna appears once in a day of Brahma. Now Brahma lives a long, long time, and his days are over 8 billion years long. Yeah. And so here we are. There's one 24-hour period of Brahma when Krishna appears 5,000 years ago. What's 5,000 compared to 8,400,000,000 million? Not much. Just yesterday, Krishna appeared. And this morning, Lord Chaitanya appeared. That was only 500 years ago. Practically contemporaries. So how fortunate we are that we have the Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada is, a beloved spiritual master. He took the trouble to come here at age 69, to get on, he didn't get on an airplane. He got on a cargo ship. And he had never been on a ship. He got so seasick, and he had heart attacks. And finally, he said, I knew if I had another heart attack, I'd be over. But Krishna came in a dream. He said, no, I'm going to take charge of the ship. And I lived in Miami for 8 years, and the Atlantic Ocean can be very, very rough. And September, when Prabhupada came over, it's hurricane season. So he's going into the Atlantic Ocean at hurricane season. Of course, it wasn't down south, but he's north, but it goes up there too. But it was a smooth, crossing. So much so that the captain's wife said, "Can you please come back with us? Because that was the smoothest crossing we've had." So Krishna, Prabhupada felt Krishna's help all along the way. He was surrendering to his spiritual master, told him to go west. So finally, at the end of what he thought was the very end of his life, he just did it. And the very fact that he was able to spread Krishna consciousness is like a proof of that there's a supernatural, force there, Krishna. So my point is that we should try to understand. Okay, back to the verse. Now, how do we do anything? The place of action, the body, the senses. Obviously, we need the senses. The performer, that's the soul. We are the karta, the doer here. The various senses. Now, there are 10 senses. We normally say we have 5 senses. We have the sight, they're all in the head. We can see, we can hear, we can taste, we can touch, and we can smell, you see. Those are the Gyanendriyas, knowledge acquiring senses. Then there's the active senses. I'm sorry? Karmendriya, yes, Karmendriya. They're doing active service, senses. Gyanendriya, and then we have Karmendriya. So the hands, the feet, the voice is very important, you see.
and the excreting and reproducing organs. So those are our 10 senses, you see. So whatever we're doing with those active work, in the world. And then we have, so those are the senses. Then we have kinds of endeavor. There's a certain effort. We want to do something, so the will is there. I love this phrase. I remember when thinking, feeling, and willing. This is the mind. You think about it. What is we do? We think, and then we feel. And the advertisers always want us to get the feel. They work on the emotions. Oh yeah, I want that thing. I want this. Or yeah, I need some insurance, or whatever they're advertising, you see. So they're planting a desire in your heart. So that's feeling, you see. And then willing. You're going to do something. These are the functions of the mind. And what you feel and what you think is going to determine what you try to do. So that's why cultivating this knowledge is so important. Oh, if this is really true, if I have faith in this, and I said this, and there's a whole line of realized souls, and I went to, and I've chanted this mantra a little bit, and it seems to be helping me, In other words, your faith it grows in the process, and then you change your activity. Basically, it begins. You begin to chant, or you come to class, or you read the book that you got in the airport or in the park or whatever it is. So that's willing. And so what happens there? So you're always going to be working with these 5. So the various senses, then the endeavor, and ultimately the supersoul. So what is the supersoul giving? Remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. He says in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives, as the supersoul, I give that. So these are the 5 factors of action. And then we should read, because there's a whole argument he's making here. Okay, so let's go on. Sharira vanmano biryat karma prarabhate naraha nyayam va vipaditam va panchayate tasya hetavaha. Whatever right or wrong action a man or woman performs by body, mind, or speech is caused by these 5 factors. Purport. The words right and wrong are very significant in this verse. Right work is work done in terms of the prescribed directions in the scriptures, and wrong work is work done against the principles of the scriptural injunctions. But whatever is done requires these 5 factors for its complete performance. Now, of course, we may not fully believe that, about right and wrong. But what right and wrong means is that what is auspicious, what is going to help you to succeed in the mission of life? Is there a real mission in life? Or is it just like we're here for a certain number of years and we should try to get as much enjoyment as we can and then it's all over? That's the first lesson. No. It's a huge journey. We've had many, many lives before. We don't remember them by Krishna's grace. If we did, we'd have a huge case of PTSD, you can imagine. That's one of the blessings. But another blessing is that Krishna comes and gives us this instruction, how we can change the course of our lives to make it auspicious so that we're actually moving toward the final goal of life. Now, I always bring this point up too, because it's not so easy, because we're all conditioned and habituated to think and act in a certain way. One second. But no matter what we are doing in this line, even just reading a few words, chanting a few mantras, that's never lost. That's there in your auspicious bank account. Krishna says, "Sopam apashadharma trayate mahato bayat," and therefore we'll be protected from the most fearful kind of danger. Who remembers what that is? Yes. That the human form of life is such a gift, but if we go down to dog or cat life, we have no chance. They don't have the ability to understand. I mean, there's fortunate cats live with devotees' homes. They get prasadam every now and then, but it's a definite step backward. Okay, you had a comment or question, and I'm curious to it. But let us use the mic. It's coming right behind you. You have to hold that button till the light goes on. No. Yeah, she may have turned it off.
How about now?
Okay.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm kind of confused with if
like your thoughts can kind of like influence your actions and stuff, right? But how do you know if maybe some of the thoughts or like visions and ideas that you have are from more of like your ego or from Krishna or from yeah. Does that make sense?
Well, a little bit. The thing is, the mind, Krishna says in the 6th chapter, the mind can be your best friend or it can be the worst enemy. You probably know that one. And as soon as you read that, who cannot say, yeah, that's, it's true. We've all experienced it. The mind is you can't forget something. I mean, I've, read about and experienced a little bit, people who've been through wars or, that we had. And they just, oftentimes what they can't forget is what they were forced to do. And they saw, oh my God, I just killed a child or something, and it can haunt them the rest of their lives. You can imagine. So it's in there. The mind is in there. So if we have an idea or understanding of what thoughts we should cultivate that will be most auspicious and most wholesome for our life, then we can turn our attention that way. For the most part, we just, we are in the field, we're out and about, and we get attracted to a certain kind of movie or something. And then we want to see all those kind of movies. We associate with certain friends who, we become like them. As the association is, there's even a phrase for it. Sangat sanjayate kama. As you associate, your desires will be made. Every mother knows that. Who's my child hanging out with? So the senses are pulling in all kinds of impressions all the time, and the mind is judging. Is this pleasurable? No, that's not interesting. Go this way, And then the intelligence is giving you an idea how you can achieve this. So it's all a very complicated thing. But the whole point of Krishna consciousness is that there's a system, and there are sources of knowledge that if we cultivate them, we can experience along the way, it's called a bhakti marga, a path of bhakti. That it's confirmed. If I chant this mantra, if I act in this way, get up, I associate with these people, I come to, yes, I'm feeling more enlivened, I'm feeling more peaceful, I'm feeling less worried and anxious. These may be like first benefits that you feel. But it says, oh, this person really seems to have my best interest at heart. They're not trying to exploit me or whatever. So you're attracted to associate, and in the association you learn. It's actually this verse is very pertinent. Ādau shraddha tatak sadhu sangha tabhajana kriya tato nartana visita tato nishta ruchita. This is a recounting of the steps from the first stage, which begins with some faith and ends up with prema, pure love of God, by our great Acharya Rupa Goswami wrote this. So at the beginning it comes, you get there's some faith that brings you into the association of devotees. Just like you're here, you can be a million other places. I always point out that, this is you make one decision, you go another 100 feet down here, there's been a succession of bars. There's always a bar down there, and then you can hang out over there. You get a whole different experience. But you chose to come here, so that's very auspicious. So the decisions that you make based on your knowledge and your association and your feeling can change your whole destiny. You know what I mean? So and so if you say, okay, this looks interesting, let me learn more about it, and let me try that chanting. It looks harmless. People who do it seems pretty pretty together, and you find that you're actually feeling the benefit of it. Just like when I started yoga, it was all the physical yoga, and immediately felt better. That's why it's so popular. Yeah, you stretch this way, you do this, like that. So, but that's not going to help you go back to Godhead. If you're really healthy and you're good at standing on your head, if you're not remembering Krishna when you leave your body, then you're going to come back again. But the point is that Krishna is trying to encourage us here. He's speaking to us in a way. There's no mystery here. You know, here's the tools that you have. Yeah, I can see these are the senses, the 10 senses. You know, and the mind, yeah, the mind tends to carry me away. I need to discipline the mind. And that's such an important aspect, you know, to be able to, okay, chant, but at the same time hear, focus the mind. But the wonderful thing is that Krishna is so all attractive. You know, we just had back in October the Damodar month, and Krishna is a little baby, you know, playing with his mother. You know, God's hiding his divinity because what does he enjoy? He enjoys these rasas, these relationships, you know, and that's what we do also. The problem is ours also eventually ends. I remember when I was visiting my mother, you know, I was, let's see, how old was I in 85? I was 38 years old. And I would go see my mother. She was in her 70s, I think, at that time. And when I would visit her, the first thing she wants to do is feed me, of course, you know. Which is what a mother does, you know. Okay, Mom, make me some baked potatoes or something, you know, and I'll offer them like that. So she was still seeing me as her child, as her, you know, and I didn't discourage that because that, you know. So that's, you know, that's natural. But the tragedy is that it's all temporary. The rasas, the relationships all break, as we've all experienced. You grow up in this world and, you know, someone who you like or love is no longer around. Maybe they die or they get someone else. So it can be very painful. But the whole idea is we have this eternal relationship with Krishna. And it's an eternal source of pleasure. It can be. We are eternal. That you know, we go through different bodies, we forget them. But that's something that all the acharyas and all the Bhagavad Gita, everything says, yes, you're not going to die. But you want to act in such a way that you can move toward your eternal life. What is that phrase, that famous motto? Tamasi ma jyotirgama, asato ma sadgamaya, and mrityum ma amritam gamaya. So, don't stay in the darkness, come to the light of knowledge. Don't stay in the world of impermanence, but come to the eternal world. And don't stay to the world of death, birth and death, but come to the world beyond birth and death. And that's, you know, it's a call. And is it all just a dream? Is it all just a con? No, I mean, that's one of the things about Prabhupada was so popular, because it was obviously it wasn't just out for conning people and making money. There's I've recently encountered I've been around a long time. I used to work on the Back to Godhead magazine for years. We have this magazine. And there was my teacher, my first yoga teacher was named Shiva Prem at that time, Shiva Prem Swami. And this is back in '72. I started doing yoga, you know, in New York City. And he was a nice guy, but the yoga studio was on the Upper East Side of New York, and that's where all the middle-aged ladies were coming to, you know, lose weight, you know. And I eventually said, well, I want a little something more contemporary with me, so I moved on the West Side, where all the young, you know, yogis were. But this Shiva Prem Swami, he eventually showed up in L.A. when I moved to L.A. in '75, and then he shows up, and I thought, oh boy, I know this guy. He's coming to try to steal our bhaktas. So I told the leader there, Danavir, he wasn't a Swami then, but he was leading the bhaktas. Watch out for this guy, I think he's after us. So he talked with him, and he found out, no, he wanted to be a bhakta. And eventually, even though he was like 45 years old, the rest of us were all 23, 25. So he eventually told me his story, and I wrote it up into an article, and I reread it recently, because I had saw him when I went into LA recently. He's still around. He's over his 90s. And he for years, he was teaching this yoga, but then every so often his teacher would come from India. And he's in New York City. So he ordered him, okay, rent me a penthouse. Oh, okay, you know. So I can meet people, and then you can meet him, and you can get initiation for like $20. Maybe it's more. Maybe it was over the years it got more expensive. I don't know, but that's what it was. I didn't get initiated. You know, I just sat down, had a conversation with him. But the point is, he eventually realized that it wasn't a real genuine teacher. You know, he was in it just for the money, and so eventually he left him. And he went across town. We had a big temple, and the big 55th Street temple we had for like 7, 8 years. And I lived there a couple of years. And he heard Ridhyanandamar speak, and then he was at the height of his, preaching powers, and he was blown away. So he came to all the way to LA, where his mother was, and eventually showed up at the temple, and he surrendered there, and he became Amala Bhakta, eventually Amala Bhakta Swami, So he told me that story, and I wrote it all down. And that was the thing with Prabhupada. He wasn't obviously there to sell you a mantra. He was giving you the most valuable mantra for free. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. How do we know it's most valuable? It's in the Vedas. There's an Upanishad all about, that has I think it's not the whole, Kali Santana Upanishad. So Hare Krishna mantra is one of the verses in the Upanishad. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama. Iti Shodashakam Nam, Kali Kalmashanashanam, Natak Padataropaya Sava Vedeshu Drishyate. These 16 words, Shodashaka names, Kali Kalmashanashanam, destroys the impurities produced by this Kali age, Kali Kalmanat. Natak, you can search throughout the Vedas, you won't find a better way to counteract the evils and influence of this age. So it's all this Vedic. It's proved there, and if you actually take it seriously and regularly chant, suspend your disbelief and doubt, and admittedly it's hard this age. You get cheated so easily, but there's no cheating here. Anyone who chants it seriously experiences some bliss because you are associated with Krishna through his holy name. Okay, we're kind of getting to the end. I'm sorry, I kind of wandered around, but we'll continue with this tomorrow, and Krishna will. And I'm telling you, it's interesting. One little point here: the purports are pretty short. You notice that? You start out, you go to the second chapter. They're really long purport. Prabhupada said, "I really want to finish this book." He's in the 18th chapter now. So all the purports are short. But it's a very important chapter, and it ends with Krishna's most important instruction, which I'll tell you about tomorrow. But here's a verse you haven't heard in a long time. It's the most easy verse to chant because every syllable is a long syllable. So here's the meter. Barha pidam maulau bimbran vangshi naran atan ban. Nana kalpa shri sampanno gopa sribi sambhita. Netranandam kuvan krishna tvam tradvikshet sukseta. Sarve kamak sampadyerat asmakam vidyasina. By Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Decked with crown of peacock plumes and chanting songs with flute you sing, wearing lovely ornaments while standing in the gopis' ring. Dear most Krishna, eyes delight if you will kindly glance our way. All our heart's desires will be fulfilled on this most blessed day. Now, there's no reason not to memorize the Sanskrit or the English. Very easy. So I'll give it to you. You can do it. All right, let's adjourn, and then we'll have a nice kirtan. You can think of that verse when your curtains open. Oh, dear most Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for attending, and also for anyone online.